Today's Talk About It Tuesday question is, as an entrepreneur and only employee at the moment, how do you schedule an effective workday with the tasks needed to run your business? Should it be regimented like an employee? Does it need to be down to the hour? I love this question because I experienced that. So in 2004, that was the last time I had a job and I became a full-time entrepreneur and investor. And let me tell you, I was lost at first because I didn't understand that with this full-time freedom, you can get distracted so easily. There's so many things to distract you, and you don't really understand how to stay on task. When you're an employee, someone tells you what the company's goals are. Someone tells you what the priorities are. Somebody tells you what tasks need to be performed, what deadlines exist. Somebody manages the workflow to make sure you stay on track. And when you are an entrepreneur, especially a solo entrepreneur, you have to do all of that. And you don't have the experience of doing that before. You only had to manage whatever tasks were in front of you when you were an employee. So oftentimes what we do is we start focusing on things that don't really matter because we don't know what matters. So here's what helped me out. What I began to do, and what every business owner should do, is really narrow down your focus significantly. When you're new in business, you have these gigantic goals. I want to get a certain amount of market share, or I want to make a certain amount of money, and you haven't built the business to that point yet. And so the thing is, not only when you're starting, but even as you're going, you should have a longer term vision and break everything up into annual goals. So you might have a long-term goal of doing something, but you can only think of this next year. So you think of annual goals, and those goals could be, I don't know, increase my customer base by X percent. Narrow down my product line to so-and-so products that are the most profitable. Create a relationship with my customer, a frequency program with my customer, so I'm on the top of their minds. 3-4, things that you broad things that you can focus on, but things that are attainable, right? 3 or 4 tangible, attainable goals that are broad enough to have a little flexibility in there. So you have 3 or 4 annual goals. That will then allow you to break that down into more manageable tasks. So you have your annual goals. Now you can do quarterly just to give yourself a time frame for certain things, or monthly. I tend to jump right to monthly, but some people will break it down into quarterly, and then from the quarterly to monthly, just so you know you're on task. So your monthly goals are supposed to lead up to your quarterly goals. The quarterly goals will lead to the annual goals. Your monthly goals can be then broken down into weekly goals. This is how you know you're on task or not. Your weekly goals can be broken down into daily tasks. Now, I am a meticulous planner, and I must say that in the beginning, in the first few years for me, I literally would break things down to the hour. I had to write down, and the reason I did that is, one, I didn't know how to manage my time well yet. So I didn't know how much I could get done in a day. I used to totally overestimate. And so breaking it down by the hour helped me, because if I thought it would take an hour and I only plugged an hour in my schedule, and then I realized, oh, that type of task takes 2-3 hours. Eventually it helped me to organize my schedule realistically, right? Because a lot of times we overestimate what we can do in a short amount of time. So I would do, like I said, down to the hour. And that helped me also to avoid distractions like going down the rabbit hole of social media, or putting out fires, things that popped up that I thought were an emergency. And the reality is most fires will burn themselves out. They're not that consequential if you just leave them alone and stay on task. A lot of times if you stay on task, you'll minimize all these so-called fires. So I would meticulously plan down to the second. The problem with that was I left no room for flexibility. So I changed that a little bit, where I would leave a little bit of room for flexibility, and it wouldn't be so meticulous down to the hour. But as I got along in business, then I realized, okay, I know how long it takes me to do certain things. I have systems in place. So there are certain routines that are kind of set in stone. And then I kind of have an idea of what needs to be done. And so I don't have to do it so rigidly. You might have to do it rigidly in the beginning. But I think after a while, once you understand what your annual goals are and the tasks that need to be done, and you know how well you work and you know how well you use your resources, and you know how focused you can be, you don't have to be so rigid, right? It can be more task oriented as opposed to, or goal oriented as opposed to task oriented. So definitely you have to plan. You have to get feedback for yourself in terms of how you manage what you plan. You can't keep punting things down off the list down to the next week or the week after that, or things never get done. And at the end of the year, you should do what I call a postmortem, meaning, okay, did I reach these goals? And why was it that I didn't reach these goals? Was it because I didn't plan well? Was it because I didn't manage the time well? Was it a resource thing? What was it? And then if the goal is important, you carry it over to the next year. So definitely have to plan. I think you definitely have to have every day, right? Because one of the things that I do for daily tasks, I write out the night before. I try to write out what I need to do the next day. The next day, I have a checklist and I cross things off, which is very helpful. And it kind of gamifies it too. It makes me feel good to see things crossed off. And it also gives me a log or a history of, okay, this is how many things you can get done in a day. Again, which helps you down the road so that you plan better as you go along. So yeah, you are not an employee anymore. It's on you. It's on you to prioritize, set goals, prioritize, stay on task, meet deadlines, have key point indicators. How do you know you're on track? That's all on you now. And you have to plan or you will go out of business because you didn't plan well. It's that simple. So I love that question. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, what you guys do if you're an entrepreneur, or what you would do if you become an entrepreneur. But please like, share, subscribe, keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.